All right, lads and lasses, and good day, mates. Welcome to another episode of the Toon podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's #1 podcast for all things Newcastle United. How is everyone's Thursday going? It is nearly 8:30 p.m. on Thursday here in the lucky country of Australia. I'm absolutely knackered, in case you haven't wondered. If you're looking at the screen here and thinking, who's this old, tired person? That's me. I am absolutely knackered. Today we're going to be talking about the Bournemouth preview coming up at the weekend after a short hiatus, thanks to the Queen dying. But first, we'll also be getting into a talk about this new fella who's been linked to Newcastle United recently in the press, coming from Australia. We'll have a little bit of a talk about him first. Before we do any of that, though, let's have some welcomes from the boys. I'm joined today by Dimi in freezing cold Victoria. I'm liking the Toon podcast shirt you're rocking there, mate. How are you going?
Very well, Lee. Very excited for this weekend. As you know, there's a big weekend coming up in Sydney for all Aussie mags, so that's going to be a good one. But no, I'm ready to go. I'm excited to talk about Garangsky and ready to go for this weekend.
Oh, this weekend is going to be something. I'm thirsty for it, man. I'm absolutely thirsty for it. I'm dying for it. Got a new Newcastle shirt as well, in case you hadn't noticed. This is this the away shirt, the blue one, or is this the third kit? Which one is this?
Third.
That's the away one.
Third. Oh, is it the away?
Exactly. See,
yeah,
this is why I asked.
Away.
Nobody knows what the hell this thing is.
It's the Saudi Arabia color one. That's the third kit.
Yes, you're right.
I thought I'd get an answer, but obviously not. Yeah.
A controversial third kit.
Yeah.
I love this shirt. I'm not sure about this ginormous friggin' Noon advert on the side here that blends into the background. If you're watching, look at that. Whoa. It's absolutely massive. It's just a walking billboard. But I did the clever thing of buying like a size larger than I needed, just to make sure it actually fits, because it's, Castle. What are you going to do? And who else has joined us? Mark in beautiful Brisbane. Mark's been pretty nice lately. How are you going?
Yeah, the weather's starting to pick up. It's starting to go. I'm a bit knackered myself. Didn't sleep very well. This is my second pod of the night, so
it is.
Keeping things going.
It is. You're promoting the pod far and wide.
Yeah,
appreciate the effort, mate. Well done. Good on you.
Inter-pod relations.
That sounds a little bit illegal, but okay.
Sounds a bit dodgy, but it's all good.
All right, look, let's get into the pod. We'll try and keep this a little bit shorter than normal. Let's get into the pod straight away. Let's talk about this new fella. Now, if anyone's watching this, you can see the slide on screen. For those who aren't watching, who might be listening, we're going to talk about this lad called Garang
Kuol.
What?
Kuol.
There's no W. All right, Garang Kuol. Right, I'm just going to call him Cool. Garang Kuol. Here he is. He's 18-year-old. He plays for the Central Coast Mariners here in Australia. That's in Sydney. Well, sorry, New South Wales. His nationality, as far as football is concerned, is Australian, and his position is forward, a striker, and he is 1.75 meters high, which is, what is that, about 6 foot something?
Not even.
Not even that.
5'10".
5'11".
Yeah, 5'10".
Yeah, 5'10". Yeah, something like that. So he's not a huge lad. He has scored. He's had 9 appearances in this 21-22 season, which is last season, I suppose. He's had 4 goals and 1 assist. He really came to prominence in that European game. What was it again? Was it some kind of All-Stars?
Against Barcelona, All-Stars? Yeah. A-League All-Stars against Barcelona.
A-League All-Stars, which is hilarious, against Barcelona. And he had that one mazy run, didn't he, where he picked up from midfield and skinned a few fellas and then got lucky towards the end and almost scored like probably the most amazing goal he'll ever scored in his entire life. But he is hot in the news right now. Newcastle has been linked to, in fact, I say linked. He's probably actually been almost certainly bought by Newcastle for a fee of around about $600,000, I think. So it's pretty low money as far as regular signings are concerned. He's only 18. I imagine he's going to go into the development squad. The rumours are that he will be bought and then immediately loaned out to a European club. I'm not sure what the details are behind that. Dimi, I'll come to you in a second. In fact, I'll come to you now. So you're basically our A-League expert, aren't you? You're one of the A-League experts. You actually follow Melbourne Victory for reasons that are obscure and hard to understand. But you watch the A-League. I don't think you watch the Mariners too much, but what can you tell us about this lad? Where's he from? Why are the top clubs? Because it's not just us. There are rumours that other clubs in Europe have been looking at this lad. Why are they looking at him? What's his deal? What's his why is he so popular? What's he got going for himself? And what do you think our long-term interest will be in this guy? Is he going to be one of the ones for the development squad? It's fairly obvious to everyone since Dan Ashworth came in that we are slowly but surely developing our development squad. We're bringing in all these promising young players. Is he going to be straight into that? Is he going to get farmed out for a season or two and then brought into the first team? What can you tell us about this fella?
Yeah, so basically he's actually from Shepparton in Victoria. So he signed for the Mariners Academy, I want to say, at the start of 2021, and he was always thought to be one of the better, or probably the better brother out of the family. His older brother is currently playing for Stuttgart. He was loaned out last year to Bundesliga 2, and he played a few games for them. So his brother is playing for Stuttgart, but Garang signed for the Mariners in January. He made his debut in December 2021, which was a couple of months into the season just gone. And basically, as soon as he's come into the team for the Mariners, he wasn't starting initially. He did make a couple of starts, but as an impact player for 15, 20 minutes, he was coming on and changing games, whether he was scoring goals, causing havoc, just a positive player. And he's just one of those players where as soon as you see him play, even for 5 minutes, you can just see he's got something, and he's got that bit of X factor about him, like we call it in Australia. I'm not sure what you guys call it in the UK, but we call it a bit of X factor. He's something different. He's a very positive player on the ball. He's not afraid to dribble. He's not afraid to shoot, which a lot of our wingers and strikers at Newcastle, besides Callum Wilson, are afraid to shoot at times. Miggy Almiron, Jacob Murphy, you know who you are.
Jacob Murphy's not scared to shoot. He just
he can shoot. He just can't score. He just can't score. He just can't score. But Garangski, as he's affectionately known, he can score right foot, left foot. He definitely made an impact late in the season for the Mariners, and so much so that he only really probably came to prominence towards the end of the season in the A-League 21-22. So much so that he got picked in that All-Star game that you talked about against Barcelona, sort of what they called the commissioner's pick. So he wasn't picked in the initial squad to play, but as a wild card player, he was picked because of his talent, because of his potential, and he came off the bench. And it wasn't just that mazy run that you talked about where he got a little bit lucky at the end with a deflection and just chipped it wide. He also hit the bar. He had another shot that was well saved. So he was definitely well and truly in the game and almost single-handedly won the game for the All-Stars at the end. So in terms of his performance for the Mariners, as I said, it was a lot more off the bench, but he's just one of those players. As soon as he gets the ball, you think he's going to do something with the ball, and he's so naturally gifted dribbling with the ball and balanced. He's not tall, so he's got that advantage where he's not lumbering and hasn't got that quick touch and turn, but he definitely has nice control, a lot of pace, and shoots right foot, left foot. So if you have a look at the goals he scored for the Mariners, he has scored on both feet already as a 17-year-old last season. He's just turned 18, I think, a few days ago, actually.
Today?
So,
it's his birthday today.
Yeah, there you go, today.
Well, happy birthday, Garang.
Yeah, so he's only just turned 18. So definitely he's a hot prospect. So much, again, as probably has been come out in the press, he's been picked for the Socceroos squad to play New Zealand in a couple of games in a few weeks. So
yeah, we'll come on to that in a second.
That's a huge show of faith, I think, in Garang, and I think just shows what Australian football and coaching think of this kid. So he's raw, as everyone says, this young player, raw, hasn't had a lot of senior appearances, as you can see. He's probably played, along with those 9 games in the A-League, he's probably played 3 or 4 of the cup games for the Mariners. So he's only had probably 15, 16 games as a senior pro for the Mariners. But already people can see that there's just some players have got it, and I think this kid's got it, and I definitely think he's going to become a mainstay for the national team going forward in the next few years.
So he's kind of like, there's a couple of things here. It sounds a bit like he's one of those wonder kids who comes along every now and again where everyone sits up and goes, bloody hell, this guy's got it going on. It also sounds a lot like Elliot Anderson, though. You know, the way you've just described him as being kind of not particularly tall. I don't know what size Anderson is. I don't think he's short necessarily, but he has that kind of poise. He has that ability to take on his man. He has that ability to shoot, score goals. He obviously has more experience, having spent a lot of time at Bristol. Would you say there's some fairly similar characteristics there? That obviously Elliot Anderson tended to play on the wing at Bristol, but he can play a forward as well, I think.
Yeah, Garang's probably more of a forward / second forward winger than Elliot. Elliot's probably more likes to play that number 10, has played left wing at Bristol Rovers. But the one thing about Garang that blew everybody away at the end of the season last year in the A-League is his confidence. I mean, for a kid to come in, no matter what you think of the quality of the A-League, for a kid to come in for a professional football team, professional football team when we're going to ignore that comment, Lee, a professional football team and make a mark as a 17-year-old against grown adult men, against decent quality sides. It's no short ass. So definitely he's got that confidence, which you don't really see in 17-year-olds. You sort of see young kids come through there. They've got a little bit of brushness, but they don't have that final touch or that final, I'm going to score that goal to win the game. And he'd scored a couple of winners for the Mariners last year, so he's definitely got that it factor about him.
Now, you were saying before we came on here that the Mariners have a pretty good record of developing prospects. Give us an idea of who else have developed, and then maybe you can compare this guy to those guys. Yeah,
probably the two most famous ones is Matty Ryan, the goalkeeper, who had a great career at Brighton. He's Australia's captain now, and has been a mainstay for the Socceroos for years.
How old is he now? He must be like 55-year-old or something.
Matty Ryan, no, I think he's only probably early to mid-30s. He started very young. He was a pro and first-team keeper at around 2021, and
wow, what a career!
He's had a very good career so far, and hopefully a long more to go for him. The other guy who's probably made his name in the UK is Mile Jedinak. He had a fantastic career at Crystal Palace, but he started at the Mariners, so he was another one who was a mainstay for Central Coast Mariners when they were probably top 1 or 2 team in the league back early days of the A-League, and he got picked up and ended up becoming the captain for not only the Socceroos but for Palace, I think, for a time. So he was fantastic. So, and probably another couple of players they've had exports. His brother Alu probably had more of a run in the senior team for a season and a half. He was signed by Stuttgart, I want to say about 18 months ago. He was loaned out last season for Bundesliga 2, but he's currently with Stuttgart at the moment. Unfortunately, his debut ended in disaster. He got sent off after about 5 minutes. But besides that, Alu was also developed, and he came through the same way from Shepparton into the academy, into the first team at Central Coast. So they definitely have that history of developing players. They're not the wealthiest club. They're known as a development club. They don't spend money outside the salary cap like we have here in Australia, but they do know how to develop players. And as I've outlined, there's half a dozen more players who have made it from A-League shit quality, like you say, Lee, to play top English Premier League football.
Yeah, I'm going to just quickly jump in there though on that note. I know that we take the piss out of the quality of the A-League at times, but
Lee does, and
Lee does. But at the same time, you're looking at a lot of like players at the end of their careers, all coming to Australia for their big payday, expecting to tear the league a new ass. They think they're going to come here and be like this dominant player. So to have this young kid that's coming in, performing the way he does, when so many senior players that, coming towards the end of their careers, so are not at their prime, but they've got experience. They've got the experience behind them in better leagues, and they're supposedly these better players who come in and struggle, and they don't perform at that level. You've got to at least tip your hat that the kid's come in and he's gone, right, I'm gonna prove to everyone exactly what I can do, and he seems to have that no fear attitude.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Lee, but that's the thing. And with Australian football in general, we don't have many players who have got that X factor about them. We're a lot of players who are similar, hardworking, but not very technical, and that go get him attitude, attack the box, have a go. And Garang has that. His brother has that as well, and that's why Australian football fans have gravitated to Garang, and definitely high hopes for him because of what he stands for and where he's come from, and just what he's shown already in his 8 month professional career.
All right. Well, it all sounds very promising, Mark. There has been a few whispers on social media rather, when this first was announced. I think it kind of caught a lot of people by surprise. Caught us by surprise. I have no idea who this fella
Definitely
is.
came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and apparently there's a whisper. We've heard some sources tell us that there was some legal issues going on behind the scenes. We suspect it's something to do with the agent, possibly to do with how he may have changed agents to make this move go through. What can you tell us about that? Yeah, any problems that maybe you know about?
Well, from what I've been reading up, because I mean, as I said, look, this is kind of broken today, and out of the blue, just sort of suddenly we're the ones that are going to sign him, and it's like, okay, fair enough. Now,
Sweet.
He has an agent here, but apparently has been speaking to or is involved with like some super agent from Europe or something like that. Now, the issues here are apparently surrounding like which agent is actually making the deal happen. Now, whether or not that's down to the player needing a better agent that's more connected to get the deal through, whether or not Newcastle have been involved with that agent to get the deal through, nobody seems to really know the details, but there's definitely some sketchy kind of he said, she said sort of thing going on here where nobody's really sure of what's going on, but whatever the case is, there's probably going to be a bit of money at stake, and so the agents are clearly going to want their cut. And that's pretty much what it boils down to. There is obviously the guy's got like it's almost like that whole Amiobi family thing going on where, you know, it's like they've got like 5 brothers and they're all playing football. There is one kind of dark cloud hanging over him, not him specifically, so I don't think it has anything to do with him as such, but there is definitely sort of his oldest brother, I believe it is effectively has an arrest warrant out for him for embezzling or in sort of ripping people off when he was working at the bank. And that's kind of like all documented. This has nothing to do with this kid, so I don't think that's going to affect anything as such. But there is discussions around whether or not the agent bickering between themselves that may actually sort of dampen down some sort of like international transfer. And we were talking before with Dimi about what he thought in terms of getting visas and things like that, and where that's kind of leading with this new agent and potentially his call up at the next weekend on the 22nd for Australia as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm actually just getting some notifications here in our normal chat window. First from Keegs, he points to an article saying that his brother is on bail, but he was accused of stealing $120,000 from bank customers. So there's that. And he's apparently skipped bail on those fraud charges.
Okay, I missed that one.
This is apparently from June, and this is reported by the Daily Mail. This is why there's apparently a talk of a warrant for his brother. Now, obviously, I think I read somewhere that his brother was also his agent at one point or other. And I don't know if maybe someone's advised him to say, look, your brother's a bloody wanted criminal, get rid of him and get a super agent in to get you moved across to Europe. I don't know what the deal is there. But clearly, the fact that Garang is being linked to the likes of Newcastle is now suddenly bringing out all of these other issues, all these skeletons in the closet. I'm just looking at something else here. His brother Kuol has been saying, happy birthday, my little brother Garang. What are your journey and obstacles overcome to turn from a boy to a man? This was one of my best memories this year. You've gotten here yourself. You can never let anyone who barely knows you take that away from you. I don't even know what that video is about, but I'm not sure if that's whether or not an issue with Garang, his brother, or Garang himself. Garang? God, I'm getting Garang. But clearly there is some noise behind him. So leading on from that then, Dimi, is that going to affect his chance to get a work visa? We've seen even who's that lunatic who just signed for Wolves? I forget his name. God, it's
Diego Costa. Yeah.
Costa. Sorry. He was initially refused, or at least it was stalled or something like that. That was the news we got initially. And then suddenly this video comes out of him trying to like kind of take a bunch of wolves for a walk with his like lunatic face. Is anything like this with his brother going to have any kind of effect on whether or not Garang can make it across to Europe and England in particular? And if not, what else might be in the way of him? And I think you've got some ideas about how you might get around that, haven't you? Getting his visa.
Yeah, so far be it for me to be a Brexit expert and how they assess visas, but I do think that they do probably look at the overall picture of not only Garang but his family and what he potentially is linked to, unfortunately for him. So that is a stumbling block, but there is talk, and if he does get capped, so has been picked in the extended Socceroos squad to play New Zealand next week, and I think there's 2 games against New Zealand, but the first one's next week in Brisbane. So he's been picked in that squad. If he is capped by Australia, that fast tracks his ability as a national team player in that queue to get a work permit or a work visa in the UK. So potentially there might already be some talk and dialogue between us Newcastle with us Australia to get Garang capped to fast track his ability to move over to sign for Newcastle and to move over to Europe. So that could be a watch this space. I doubt he starts, or almost certainly won't start for the Socceroos next week, but if he comes on for 10, 15 minutes or 5 minutes even at the end, that could be a huge help for Newcastle getting that visa pushed through instead of being rejected like Diego Costa or having to wait ages like our mate Isaac had to do for some reason.
So that even applies if it's a friendly game, which I believe it is, and even if he comes on the last 30 seconds, that still all applies as a legitimate.
Yeah, so you get capped, correct. So it's still an official FIFA window and an official FIFA friendly. So if he plays, he'll get officially capped, and that being a national team player being capped puts you up a rung, not being a random Australian bloke getting a work permit. You are now in a different category to get that work permit.
All right, well, watch this space. That game is actually here in Brisbane, as you've just said, Dimi, next week, a week today, actually. Let's see what happens with that. I'm tempted to go along just to see how he does, if he even gets on the pitch, but let's see how that goes. Not sure I want to pay $50 for it. I'm so tight. But that should be enough about Garang
Kuol.
Honestly, man,
just call him Garangsky. Call him Garangsky like everyone else does. Can you say that?
Call him
Garangsky.
Probably not.
Why you call me Garangsky? He's not bloody Russian. Anyway, let's move on. Look, let's move on from him to the game coming up at the weekend. It is against Bournemouth. It's at home. This is the game that would have been played after the last one, which wasn't played because that was delayed. That was the one against West Ham. We are still awaiting some injury news on the likes of Bruno, ASM, and Wilson. We know that Shelby, Dollar, and Kraft are out for the long term, or at least for the next few months anyway. So what we have on screen here is what we think is probably our strongest team as far as fitness is concerned, as much as anything else. I'll just read out for anybody who might be listening. It is Nick Pope in goal, Popey. And then we've got Target, Botman, Shaw, and Trippier. Trippier being captain. And then we've got Joelinton, Willock, and Bruno. And then we've got ASM and Miggy on the wings, and Isaac, big dog, up front there at the tip of the 4-3-3. Mark, what are the odds looking like that we might actually get Bruno playing in this game? Because I know you're absolutely dying to see Bruno play behind Isaac, big dog, to feed him some of those beautiful through balls. What's the odds of at least Bruno getting into this game? What we've seen?
But to be honest, it's all very cloak and dagger at the moment. I guess normally we wait for Bruno to tweet something out that he's going to be playing to allay any fears that he's not in the squad. But we haven't had that yet. It's still early days, so we may still get his usual like let's go tweets and stuff like that. But realistically, I'm buzzing to see his. I mean, the amount of balls that he is capable of threading through the defense for a pacey forward who can finish. And you know, look, Isaac is good at dribbling the ball as well. He's going to be able to come deep. I'm hoping at some point that means that Willock's going to be a little bit more adventurous in terms of getting forward as well. Realistically, this is, even if, I think we've discussed before, even if Wilson is fit, he's probably not going to start, not straight after injury. ASM's hasn't really had any updates. We've definitely seen Bruno in training. ASM's probably hasn't been pictured as much, so there's still a big question mark over him. There's discussions whether or not Anderson should start there instead of ASM if ASM isn't fit, but it's another discussion entirely. For me, I'm desperate to see Bruno in that squad. Whether or not he starts, I mean, this is Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe is very good at squad management. So it may be that, look, he's coming back off an injury, so we're not going to start him. We're going to see how we go, and then we're going to sort of bring him on for half an hour towards the end of the game and see what we can do. Realistically, this is a must-win game for us. And that's not to say that this is a must-win game because otherwise we're in a relegation battle, but it's a must-win game because we've started the season really well, but just haven't picked up the points. We've had a lot of draws, and those draws are putting us behind. And it's not all our fault. It's not all the players' fault. We've had our fair share of bad luck, and we've been coping with some injuries. And I think if you add Bruno, Maxi, if you have Isak back in there or Wilson, if you've got Shelvey around, these are all players that we've missed out on. Matty Target was injured for a while, and it all just kind of shuffles around that really good work that, we've been aiming towards in pre-season. So to have Bruno back in that middle, to kind of control it, and I actually genuinely feel Joe Linton is a better player with Bruno next to him because he feels comfortable being able to pass that ball off to Bruno and not being able to sort of panic about who's around him. He knows they seem to have that link already. But yeah, I'm super excited to see Bruno in there with our new forward, a new future number 9. I'm guessing it will be. But yeah, look, I don't want to second guess it because it's still pretty early days, and I think it'll be a bit sort of like stupid to rush him back if he's not 100%.
No, absolutely. I mean, the whole thing just fizzles, doesn't it, when Bruno's in? He's almost like the first name on the sheet that you're looking for. It used to be a little while that used to be ASM you look for to get that kind of excitement in the team, but then Bruno just comes in and he's so composed and he's so clever in what he does, and he just makes things tick. And yeah, oh God, you just hope that he's in this team. You hope he's going to be in this squad. But Dimi, I meant to come to you first, I didn't, but Mark's done a pretty good job of covering all that. But I'll ask you, if Bruno doesn't make it, and if ASM doesn't make it, and we haven't heard anything from ASM just yet, who are we going to fall back on those positions? Because I think those are probably the only two positions that are in doubt here, aren't they, really? Well, you could maybe argue Fraser instead of Miggy, but who do we replace Bruno and ASM with if neither or either don't make this game?
So I think if Bruno's out, Longstaff starts. I don't think we've got another central midfield deeper option other than Longstaff if Bruno doesn't play. So if, heaven forbid, Bruno doesn't make this game, Longstaff will start, and it'll be that same midfield trio that we've had for the last 2 or 3 or 4 games. Can't even remember now.
Which has been all right, in fairness.
Yeah, it's been okay. I mean, you can definitely, obviously, of course, you're going to tell the difference if Bruno's not playing. I think the point on Joe Linton, just to mention with Mark said, Joe Linton's better with Bruno. I think he needs somebody, whether it's Bruno or whether it's Shelvey, who sits a bit deeper to give him the ball in a better area. He's having to probably do too much with Longstaff and Willick next to him, because Longstaff and Willick, although Willick, especially Longstaff, is okay on the ball, but they're not Bruno or they're not Shelvey. So that's potentially been an issue with Joe. But in terms of the wing, I don't think Eddie will start Anderson. As much as we'd love Elliot Anderson to start, and he's been fantastic off the bench for us and definitely been making an impact every time he comes on. Yeah, you'd have to think he's going to be playing Ryan Fraser, especially against his former club. Fraser might have something to prove against Bournemouth. It wouldn't be the worst shout to give Fraser a start to see what he's got against his former club, who sort of shunned him out at the end.
So what do you do? Stick him down the left in place of ASM?
Yeah, that's Miggy for me is ahead of Fraser on the right. So Fraser hasn't done anything to get that position on right wing. So if ASM doesn't make it and is not fit to start, Fraser for me is the one to start on the left.
All right, but we'll still either way be maintaining this 4-3-3. Well, we're not going to do anything daft like a fucking 4-3-5-1-2-0-6 or something. All right, fair enough. Let's move on to Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth, they Mark, who's giving you the shit in this team? I mean, who should we be wary of in the Bournemouth team? Bearing in mind that they've just, they've got that whole new manager bounce thing going on. Or at least there should be, in theory, having the new manager bounce on now that they've ejected Cardigan fancier Scott Parker, booted him into the sun after just 4 games in the Premier League. A little bit of a kind of like, thank you very much, piss off kind of situation for him.
I don't get
who
that.
this team is standing out. And do you want to just read through this team first of all, and then tell us who you think their dangers are?
Yes, I mean, firstly, just with the Scott Parker thing, I just don't understand why they got rid of him so quickly. And yes, they got a hammering off Liverpool, but they're probably not going to be the only team to do that this season.
No.
He's got them promoted. They haven't exactly like set the world on fire and done not what Nottingham Forest have done and bought like 3 brand new teams. So it's that, he's done all right. He's picked points up and then get hammered and off to teams that are effectively going to be challenging for the title again this season in Liverpool and Man City. And so you kind of think, well, give them a bit of time. So whether or not it was, as we suspect it might have been, more to do with his bitching and moaning about transfers or lack of, and the owners have taken offense at that, and then they've decided to get rid of him because they didn't like his media presence, shall we say. But still, it seems like a little bit of a strange one when he has done well to get them back up again. So the team that we've got sitting here is Neto in goal, who I actually think is a pretty decent keeper. I think we'll have to be on our game and make sure our finishing is up to standard, shall we say, to get past him. Zamora, Kelly, Metham, and Smith making up the back 4. Tavernier, which is the brother, and we'll get back onto him, the brother of the former Newcastle, well, both of them former Newcastle players. Lerma, Cook, and Christie, with Billing and Solanke making up sort of like the spine through the middle. Now, kind of, we're thinking maybe like that 5-man midfield, keep things tight for them. Solanke, for me, is desperate for something to prove. He played really well last season in the Championship. Scored plenty of goals after a rather underwhelming relegation season the last time they were in the Premier League. One of the players that has had a lot of criticism aimed at Eddie Howe for, because I believe Eddie Howe signed him. And so he didn't really sort of start as well as the price tag would have hoped he would have. But they had a lot of injuries at the time, and they had a lot of other players kind of coming and going. So, for me, I think he's proven he can do it in the lower leagues, and it's going to be one of those Mitrovic or Gale type scenarios where is he really good in the Championship but not quite hitting the ground in the Premier League, and maybe it's going to take him a little bit of time to kind of find his feet. But I definitely would prefer to have him sort of marked out of the game, because I think he could be dangerous, and we don't want to get him that confidence early on with some sights on goal. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. The rest of that team, though, I don't think we should be worrying about that. I mean, I give them the respect that they deserve, but I don't think we should be scared of anyone in that side, to be perfectly honest. I think we should have enough as long as we're on our game, and I think that's all we can really do, is just really concentrate on our game.
Absolutely. And Dimi, your thoughts on this team, and also with that postponement against West Ham last weekend, Newcastle look to profit from the extra week worth of recovery, I suppose. So how is that going to feed in against this team that we're looking at right now for Bournemouth? And finally, what can you tell us about Marcus Tavernier, who obviously is but he is the younger brother of ex-Mag James?
Yeah, I'm always shattered to see ex-Mag James play for Rangers, because he seems to be scoring a goal every second week from right back, either a free kick or a penalty. I'm thinking, how
Farmers
this bloke... Farmers League, but did score some goals in the Europa League last year too. But how that bloke never got a look in, we'll never know. But yeah, his brother Marcus was also started his career at the youth academy at Newcastle. I'm pretty sure he was at Newcastle until he was 13, and then transferred across to lovely Teesside rivals Borough, and he was at Borough until the start of this season. So he's only just recently signed for Bournemouth. He was probably one of their bigger signings, if you call him that, for Bournemouth. He is a different player to his brother. He is more of a winger, attacking player, can score a goal, can be dangerous. He's not probably, like Mark said, he's not someone who scares the shit out of you, but he is a creative player for them, and on his day probably can cause our fullbacks a bit of trouble. So in terms of the rest of the team, there's, to be fair, half that team we probably haven't heard of, let's be honest. So if we think we're fair income and legitimate this season as a top 10 team, any team that Bournemouth, all due respect to them, put out, we should be feeling confident and looking to step on them from the first minute, as we did against Forest round 1.
Absolutely. And very quickly, I always look at these kind of teams, any team really, and just think, right, who in that team gets into our team? Because that's usually a good way of judging like what kind of threat you might face. Dimi, who do you think in this team, if anybody, gets into Newcastle's first starting 11?
Well, it's a good question, because there's actually 2 of those players were linked with us. How much those links were true, who knows? But Jefferson Lerma in the midfield and Lloyd Kelly at the back were linked to us in the off-season. Lloyd Kelly is a left-sided centre-back who is highly rated by Howe, by all reports. So he was one that we looked at. Whether he'd make our team, highly doubted. In terms of that rest of that side, I mean, unless you're saying Jefferson Lerma gets a game over Sean Longstaff, potentially. Besides that, I would probably say no one in that 11, as it stands, would get a game, even with our current team at the moment, which bodes well for us. But again, the games aren't played on paper, they're played on the pitch. So hopefully the team isn't thinking like us and thinking, oh, it's going to be a walkover. Like Mark said, we've had a lot of draws. We need to start picking up wins. So let's hope that extra week has been exactly what we needed, and the big guns are back to give it to Bournemouth.
Yeah, Eddie Howe came on record and said that he doesn't see any games a free hit when you're playing like the top 6. And I assume he doesn't think any of these games are a free hit when the other teams are looking at us in the same kind of context. Now, we'll give them the full respect that they deserve. I do think that week that we've had in lieu, essentially, the game that was cancelled against West Ham, that was pretty fortuitous for us, given the injuries that we've had. If Bruno comes back, because that is such a huge gain for us. Let's have a look just quickly at some of the stats, because they're quite surprising. This is all time. This goes back to 1970 or whatever, before I was born, probably. Newcastle against Bournemouth, all-time head-to-head at St James's Park. 4 wins to Bournemouth's 2 with 1 draw. We've scored 12, they've scored 10. And there's been 2 clean sheets to 1. Doesn't make sense, does it? 2 clean sheets to 1. Anyway, the point is, it's not that kind of black and white, is it, to use a cliche? It does look like they historically have something of a challenge. But I think we can all agree, Mark, I'm sure you'll agree, that given, especially if Bruno starts, Mark, Newcastle have got to be favourites for this game at home. Haven't had a game in 2 weeks or whatever it is. Absolutely raring to go. You've got to see this as a win for Newcastle, haven't you?
I've said all along, I fancy our chances at home against pretty much anyone. I don't think anything's like a free hit. I don't think Eddie Howe sets anyone up, any of our teams up, to go out there and expect that we're going to win without putting the effort in. I think everyone will be fired up for it. It's going to be another packed house at St James's Park, another good atmosphere. So yeah, that's going to drive the players on. I think at home, the players feed off that energy from the crowd, and if they can get a goal early, then that's just going to lift them. And we need to start and get the ball in the back of the net. That's definite. But hopefully this is the game. Would you a spanking of someone at some point this season? Hopefully this is the game that everything just goes right for us for a change, and we start to get a little bit of that luck that we've been missing at the start of the season, and it all kind of like hits at once, and we run out comfortable winners.
Which of course means that it absolutely will not be the case. No. As comfortable winners.
So it's going to be a bad VAR decision, an own goal.
We'll get effed in here on Saturday. Yeah, absolutely. But that does lead in nicely to what we think might be the predictions. So, Dimi, without going overboard, what do you reckon the predictions are for this game? Who's going to win? Draw.
I've been on record in our chat, I think, for over a week and a half, what the score's going to be. It's going to be 4-0 and put my neck out. I think we're, like Mark said, we're due to finally find the back of the net and the goals to flow. And I think it's going to be 4-0. I think Big Dog up front is going to score a double, and I reckon Bruno on his return is going to score as well. So 4-0, and it's going to be a nice weekend to watch Newcastle if you're a beer in Sydney.
This weekend is going to be something else. Mark, 4-0, not exactly a humping, but what do you reckon?
I'm going to go for 3-0. I don't think we'll batter them like 6 or 7. I think we will be. I mean, I'm hoping that everything will click. The players will be up for it. If Bruno's playing, then I fancy our chances of getting a comfortable win. And I don't see them unless there's a free kick or like a mistake at the back. I just think we've probably got enough solidity at the back now to see them off and control that game. So yeah, 3-0 for me. And then we'll be hunting for you guys, asleep in the street somewhere, face down in a gutter with massive hangover in the morning.
Just keep an eye on the news, mate. We'll probably be like getting arrested or something. There'll be like a helicopter shot with us going like, ah, like, completely.
Loads of black and white shirts swimming around in Darling Harbour.
Absolutely. I for me, I think that 9-0 was a complete outlier, and I think it's completely skewed everyone's opinion of Bournemouth. I'm going to go for I'll be happy with a 1 or 2-0. I mean, obviously I will because it's a win, but I don't think this is going to be quite as easy as everyone thinks it's going to be. I think it's going to be a little bit more challenging. Sometimes, especially when we're at home, there's the air expectation, and it kind of weighs down a little bit. And I think that plays against us a lot of times. And we're so very happy with the way things are going. We're even despite all this bloody VAR bullshit that seems to keep cropping up and kicking us in the bollocks every other week. But I just think that. I think 1 or 2-0. That's what I'll go for, and it'll probably be a Big Dog who scores it. And wouldn't it be beautiful if it's Bruno threading that ball right through the middle as he runs on from the wing, and he just fucking thank you very much, cheers, and off he goes and peels away to the Gallagher. That'll be absolutely sensational.
I might get a little excited.
I might get look, man. I'm going to be down in Sydney. I'm going to be frothing. I'll be absolutely me, Dimi, Bobby, and Jack. We're going to be absolutely bouncing all over the bloody place. There's 100 Newcastle fans.
It's a midnight kickoff. I'm guaranteeing at least one of you don't see kickoff.
Well, look, let me just say this right now. That'll be Jack. All right.
I'll go Jack too. Yep.
He can't handle his liquor.
He'll get excited. Useless. He'll get overexcited again.
He'll be in the bin by 8 o'clock at night. Covered in bloody, I don't know, kebab meat or something. Oh God, there's a thought. But yeah, I'm going to go for 2-0. 1 or 2-0. And I cannot wait. Cool. Honestly, it's going to be such a great weekend. And also, if I was going to say, if you've made this far, well done. We will also advertise the fact that we are going to do a watch along of this game. Mark, you're going to be hosting that, I think, aren't you? You're going to be doing your best John
I will be on it. I don't know whether Craig or myself will be hosting it, but yeah, one of us will be waffling around the match and trying to inform everybody exactly what's happening on the pitch. And I'm hoping that at some point, one of you guys has got their mobile out attached to StreamYard, and we can do a bit of a crossover to see exactly what sort of state you're all in before kickoff.
I was going to say half the pod will be in Sydney, as I've already mentioned. With any luck, it all depends on the signals and the gods and the way the wind's blowing and stuff. But our mate Dex, who will also be joining us, he's going to bring his equipment along. At least that's the plan, anyway. And I hope we're going to try and do one of those things where you go from the studio to live at the pub. It'll probably be noisy as hell. I guarantee I'll be an absolute shit face. I don't even know where I'll be looking. I'll be surprised if I'm even anywhere near the camera. But we'll do that. We'll join over at the half time. We'll see how it's been going. Hopefully share some photographs of all the Newcastle fans, the 100 Newcastle fans on the steps of the Sydney Opera House. That should be entertaining. That'll probably be more entertaining than a bloody game, if I'm honest with you. Yeah, forget the game. That just do that for 90 minutes. Just us in the pub going. Jack swinging his shirt around with his tits hanging out.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, man, tune in for that. It'd be brilliant. All right, anyway, so that will do for the podcast today. Thanks to Dimi and Mark for joining us. If you have enjoyed what you've listened to or seen, please give us a like, subscribe on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere you find us. We're on all the audio podcasts as well. If you're in two minds about joining us in Sydney, you've still got time to buy a ticket and join us. It is on Saturday, and it starts at around about 9 o'clock, I think, in the evening at Cheers Bar in Sydney's CBD. Come along if you can. Say hello.
There are a few pre-match events as well happening. There's a
There
football
is.
tournament and some
Football
photo
tournament.
opportunities. Yes,
Absolutely,
so it
yes.
should
If you
be
can
good.
join us on the steps of the Opera House at 4:30 p.m., of course, please do that as well. Absolutely, good point, Mark.
And there's 100 tickets being sold so far, so they've hit the 100 mark.
Absolutely, it's going to be absolutely brilliant, and we've got 100 flyers to spread around Sydney. So if you happen to find a flyer about Toon podcast in Sydney, you can probably imagine where that came from. It'll be probably me or Dimi or Jack or Bobby. But please join us if you can. If not, join us for the watch along. And God Almighty, that half time is going to be something else. But until then, thanks to Dimi, thanks to Mark for joining us. Cheers, lads. We will see or hear you in the next podcast in the next few days. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.